there's never a dull moment in the world of sovereign wealth funds, right? And as you said, Abu Dhabi keeps growing, keeps diversifying, and keeps announcing new projects of an incredible size and potential. I think the key difference with some other cities that you mentioned, I mean, Oslo is the epitome of a sovereign wealth fund, right? So they found oil and they've been managing on a very professional and transparent basis since then. And Singapore is best practices as well in the world of sovereigns. Both sovereigns here in Singapore have been around for 40 plus years. However, Abu Dhabi, I think, is the dynamism and the sheer size of the different vehicles that is really incredible, right? So you mentioned ADIA, Mubadala, ADQ. These are all huge funds by themselves, but they're also diversifying, creating new subsidiaries. And also you got some sort of collateral funds, like you got XRG coming out of ADNOC and becoming a very active investor overseas. You obviously got Lunate, which spun off from ADQ and is being very active with subsidiaries as well. And you got the central bank accumulating more and more foreign reserves. They peaked at 250 billion last month. So it's really incredible what Abu Dhabi continues to do on a daily basis.
Diego, it's so interesting because we, of course, know there are very deep, very active pools of public capital in this part of the world, and that is seeing growing global interest as well. But walk me through what we're seeing in Abu Dhabi in particular, because there are 6 different sovereign wealth funds, and of course, as you mentioned, offshoots of each, Lunate, MGX, XRG, just to name a few. Is that fragmentation a strategic advantage or a coordination challenge?
Yeah, I think we call it the Abu Dhabi approach, right? So historically, there have been many different sovereign wealth funds for different purposes, and I think it was by design. They used to report to different chairs. Now, some of them report to the same chairman. But the reality is that the different funds are able to focus on their specific mandates. And if you compare it to Riyadh that you were mentioning before, PIF sort of amalgates all those mandates into one single umbrella. So now there are pros and cons to each approach. PIF, for instance, can punch above their weight, and whenever they raise capital, they can raise more capital because they're trusted by the amount of their balance sheet, which they manage by putting all the purposes together. Whereas in Abu Dhabi's case, they prefer to manage it that way, perhaps for governance purposes, but also some of the entities that have been fundraising as well, they manage as well to raise capital. So I wouldn't say it's better or worse than other approaches, but the reality is that it's very unique to Abu Dhabi.
Diego, tens of billions have already been deployed. Give me some insight into where the money is actually going and what the strategic international push actually looks like from Abu Dhabi right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. So if we look at the pure financial investors, so you mentioned ADIA before. So ADIA continues to deploy in the US and Europe just because the amount of opportunities and the size of the opportunities are hard to miss there. However, they've organized high-level trips to China and Vietnam in the past 2 months. So we're expecting them to be much more active in Asia and emerging markets as a whole. ADIC, which as you know is part of Mubadala, but is more financially driven, has been hiring some people in New York to be more direct into the private equity and co-investments. Whereas obviously Mubadala and ADQ have different goals. Mubadala keeps fundraising as well. As you saw, they just fundraised a bond last week. And they being, Mubadala is everywhere, right? So everything, everywhere, all at once. It's really incredible what Mubadala continues to achieve. And then ADQ continues very focused in the domestic companies, whether it's Etihad Rail, Modong, and a few others. But they've also been quite active in emerging markets, including Egypt, Turkey, and Vietnam. So overall, it seems that Abu Dhabi is covering all bases with all these 4 or 6 sovereign wealth funds, as you said before.